Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, don't mess with a scorned woman. I'll only be a minute. I reported my annoying neighbor until he moved. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Don't mess with a scorned woman. My ex-husband used to pick fights with me so he could leave every single weekend and cheat on me. It took me months to catch on completely what was happening. Earlier in the week, if one particularly argumentative week, we went and bought him an all-new wardrobe. He has recently lost a great deal of weight and nothing fit him. Being the good wife that I am, I placed all his brand new clothes into the dresser after laundering them. Friday night fight night happened and he was gone. I received a call about his whereabouts and what he was doing. So first, I called the police and informed them that there is a completely illegal car, no inspection, insurance or licensed driver, about to leave said bar he was at, and I was very concerned due to his heavy drinking about him being on the road. I then called the bar and explained that I was in labor, 9 months pregnant at the time but not in labor, and my husband needed to come home immediately. While on the phone, I got all of his brand new clothes out. I cut the toes and heels out of every sock, the crotch out of all his boxers, the armpits out of his shirts and made them into belly shirts, and cut his jeans straight up the pant legs to the pockets. I then proceeded to fold them all nicely and placed them back into the drawer. The next morning, after my father-in-law picked him up from the drunk tank, I had already moved the majority of my belongings out of the house and he went to take a shower. The loving wife I am gave him a set of new clothes to put on and waited for him to discover his new look. Best fit check I've ever witnessed. Just saying, don't mess with a hormonal, scorned woman. The special hell of being pregnant and cheated on. Oh, if only I knew now what I knew then. But I enjoyed watching my marriage dissolve. To this day, 14 years later, he still hasn't gotten his shit together and hounds me to come back. It's a special kind of shitheel that cheats on a woman who's carrying his child. You were nice. He was lucky. It's incredibly common apparently. He's horrible. I'm so sorry he did that to you. Love the revenge. How did he look showing up to work? I'll only be a minute. I pulled into the local Wawa because I had a tire that needed air. As I was driving up to the air pump, a woman was backing into the bay. Figuring I would have to wait until she finished putting air into her tires, I put the car into park. But instead of filling her tires, she got out and walked toward the store. I politely pointed out that her parking spot was for the air pump. In a very snotty voice she said, "I'll only be a minute." So I backed my car up so that my rear bumper was a few inches from the front of her car, essentially making it impossible for her to pull out until I moved my car away. Then I got the air hose and moved to one of my tires, but waiting until she was out of the store and headed to her car before I started putting air into my tire. "Excuse me. You're blocking me in," was shouted at me. I smiled and said, "I'll only be a minute." It took me almost 5 minutes to check the air pressure, give it a puff of air, check the pressure again, etc. And all 4 wheels needed attention. I could see her in her car on her cell phone and hear her complaining the whole time. When I finished, she started up her car as I was putting the air hose back. Then I realized I needed coffee. As I was walking away, she screamed at me to move my car. I just smiled and said, "I'll only be a minute." You are my kind of people. You mean people that are kind, that kind of people? Nothing beats pettiness that is completely warranted. The old Uno reverse play. Nicely done, sir. Nicely done, indeed. Perfect karma/small revenge. I'm sure that after her anger subsided, she will think twice about blocking others. Love the double standard card, and I love how the people that gets with the same situation confronted always starts a fuzz. I reported my annoying neighbor until he moved. I just want peace and quiet, and to be left alone. I'm in my late 20s and live alone, and I really hate kids. My neighborhood is a group of separate houses without yards that are spaced close to each other. I've lived here for 5 years by myself and it's perfect, everything I've ever wanted, no yards to take care of, and no kids around making noise. The houses share a large T-shaped cement driveway, and none of us have ever interacted with each other. We come and go, stay quiet, and mind our own business. There's a small park down the street with grass for those who want it, literally a 30-second walk away. About a year ago, a guy with a lot of little kids moved into my neighborhood. As always, I just drove past him like anyone else, and closed my garage, never spoke to him, no problem. Over time, he started making himself at home. He would park his large truck in the motor court, which has a sign saying it's illegal because it's a fire lane. It would block his neighbor's garage across from him. He would set up lawn chairs in front of his neighbor's garage and have the little kids out there running and screaming right in front of people's houses and garages, so we would have to listen to it, and then try not to run over the children as we back our cars out of the garages. He would rev his motorcycle at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and wake up the neighborhood. When his kids would be blocking the driveway, they'd take their sweet time moving. Because of this, I did one simple thing. When I would come home every day and drive past / around them, I wouldn't wave back when he waved at me. Oh, how that hurt his pride. He should have left it at that, but no. He had to press the issue. So he started waving more, and then shouting at me as I drove past, and then telling his kids to stop and stand and wave at me as I always drove past and ignored them all. Until eventually he didn't like how I drove around his kids that were in the way, even though I always drive at a safe / slow speed there, so he tried to confront me. He shouted at my car, then came to my garage as I was already getting out of the car and had the garage closing, so it closed right in his face without me ever looking at him. LMAO. He didn't like that, so he immediately walked to my front door, saw that I had a doorbell camera, and turned around and walked away. Couple days later, coming home, he was crossing the driveway as I arrived, and because he had told the kids to stop and wave at me, the dipshit stopped in the middle, so he stood in my way to block my car while trying to get the kid to move, and so I honked for 3 seconds right in his face until he moved. That was our last interaction, and I decided he's annoyed me enough. I live in an HOA. I don't actually care about any of the rules, but I decided to use them all to report him endlessly for every violation I knew of, using my dashcam on my car for screenshots with evidence. His parking in the motor court stopped after they gave him a ticket. He had to throw out the child's playhouse he had set up next to his garage. I kept reporting him for having an open garage door that I don't actually care about, in order to get him to have to stop hanging out in the motor court, and oh I don't know, use his brain and take the kids down the street to the park. Only took 4 months of reporting him repeatedly, and he just moved out. I've lived next to my neighbor for 8 years. I don't even know his name. We're cool though we did a head nod about 6 months ago. Great guy. Do you still never talk sometimes? I had a neighbor I never spoke to. The first time we did was cause he brought in a package left at the door for me. We lived in apartments. Thanked him and told him I'd do the same if he liked. That was it. We just knocked when we had a package, no small talk, just here you go. I was glad to be home when what looked like a laptop came in for him. We have lived in the same neighborhood for 30+ years. I know the names of all my neighbors. There are no neighborhood parties, but if there is an issue of any sort, we all turn out for one another. One day, there were fire trucks heading to our neighbor's house 4 houses away. I got in my car, drove down, asked if I could take the 2 little ones to my house while the single mom, of course she had met me before, dealt with the chaos, and off we went. She came and collected them a few hours later. No thanks necessary. We stay in our yards, wave when we drive by, and mind our own business. Neighbors being neighbors. All he had to do was be a decent neighbor and leave you alone. You would have let him be. Bless you. Would make great neighbors, never ever interacting with one another except for our mutual disdain of loud idiots. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.